Okay, so in this explainer, we're going to unpack a pretty provocative argument. It comes from a text called Economic Warfare, the strategy behind the Venezuelan intervention. Let's just dive right into their main claim.
Wow, I mean, right out of the gate, the source material just lays it all out there with an incredibly bold claim. It's framing U.S. actions not as diplomacy or political pressure, but as straight-up acts of aggression with a hidden motive. This is the central accusation we're going to break down. Now, a quick but really important heads up here. Our job today isn't to play detective and fact-check this claim. Nope. Instead, what we're going to do is carefully map out the logic, the chain of reasoning that the source presents. We're here to understand the argument, not to say if it's right or wrong. So that really leads us to the big question for this whole explainer. How? How does a source get from point A to a conclusion this explosive? Let's trace that logic together, step by step. All right, so first things first. To really get what's going on, we have to set the stage by looking at the two totally conflicting stories at play here, the official narrative and the one our source is putting forward. And here they are, side by side. On one hand, you have the official rationale, which focuses on things like promoting democracy and responding to a humanitarian crisis. But on the other hand, the source material just throws that all out. It argues these were just a cover story for the real objective, waging economic warfare to get a hold of valuable assets. Okay, so this naturally brings us right to the heart of the source's whole argument, the why. What specific economic motives does it claim were the true drivers behind all this? And the central concept here, the term you really need to understand, is economic warfare. The source defines this as a deliberate, calculated strategy. We're not just talking about a policy disagreement. This is about using the full power of an economy as a weapon to achieve a specific geopolitical goal. So, what's the grand prize in all of this? According to the source, it all starts with one massive number, 300 billion. And that's not dollars, that's barrels. The estimated size of Venezuela's proven crude oil reserves. I mean, that is a truly staggering amount of wealth just sitting there. And just to put that number into perspective, check this out. This chart shows that Venezuela doesn't just have a lot of oil, it has the largest proven reserves on the entire planet. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Canada. According to the source, this fact alone makes it a massive geopolitical target. But hey, the source says it's not just about the oil. It's about a whole portfolio of strategic goodies. We're talking massive gold reserves, super important minerals like lithium and coltan that you need for all our modern tech, and of course, its prime real estate, its geopolitical position in the Americas. All right, so that's the why, the supposed motive. But how did this all go down? How was this strategy actually carried out, according to the source? This next part is all about the how. And this is where it all comes down to perspective, right? The source is basically saying, hey, stop looking at these as separate little political flare-ups. They argue that if you put on your economic warfare glasses, suddenly a very clear, very deliberate pattern just snaps into focus. And they lay out a pretty clear timeline to make their case. It kicks off in 2017 with new sanctions, which they say were a direct attack meant to cripple the oil industry. Fast forward to 2019, that whole political challenge, they interpret that as a move to install a new leader who would be friendly to foreign economic interests. And then, in 2020, an alleged incursion is framed as the final move, a direct attempt to physically seize control of the resources. Yeah, and this quote right here, it perfectly captures the source's entire point of view. They're arguing that these events aren't random, they're not just happening, they are sequential, calculated, interconnected steps in a coherent long-term economic plan. So, this all leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, the endgame. What was the ultimate objective of this entire campaign of economic warfare, according to the source? Well, the source breaks it down into a pretty simple three-step playbook. Step 1, you create chaos by destabilizing the economy. Step 2, you use that chaos as cover to seize the key assets you want. And the final step, Step 3, you use that control to force a change in leadership. So the big takeaway from their perspective is this. This was never about political liberation or human rights. The source concludes that the entire operation was engineered from start to finish for one reason and one reason only, to get complete control over Venezuela's immense natural wealth. And that's basically it. That's the core argument, from the alleged motives to the step-by-step plan, all laid out as it's presented in this particular source. That is the story they're telling, in a nutshell. So, we'll leave you with something to chew on. Now, whether you find this argument convincing or not is kind of beside the point. The real question is, how does exploring a powerful alternative framework like this one change the way we might view official narratives in foreign policy? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.